Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Trustee Humphrey.
Here.
Trustee Sabi.
Here.
Trustee Rayburn.
Here.
Trustee Schultz.
Here.
President Ritter.
Here. We'll rise for Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation from Pastor Ball. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Ball.
Thank you, President Ritter. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just come before you tonight to say thank you. God, we enter this night, Lord God, with a heartfelt thanksgiving in this place, Lord God, and just thanking you for the beautiful day you've given us and for the times that we live in. And God, we take this time to pray for our village and for our surrounding regions, Lord, that you would continue to bless us, guide us, and lead us by your Spirit. God, we just pray for direction in tonight's meeting. Lord, that you would orchestrate, Lord God, this board meeting, and that you would allow us to continue to grow and develop and do the things you've called us to do. And Father, at the end of the day, we want you to be glorified, and we just thank you again for your blessing upon this city. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Pastor Ball, I want to thank you for your fine invocation, but even more so for your fine choice of shirts. Okay. Well, under proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, and awards, we have, this is Constitution Week in the whole United States. And I've asked Jeff to read a Constitution Day proclamation. Jeff, if you don't mind?
It's right here.
Yeah.
Proclamation, Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2016. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2016 marks the 229th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord the official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of the proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Ed Ritter, by virtue of the authority vested in me as President of the Village of Carpentersville, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2016 as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Date and signed at the Village of Carpentersville, Kane County, Illinois, the 20th day, September 2016.
Thank you, Jeff. It never ceases to amaze me that men 229 years ago could create a document that's only had to be adjusted, 29 times? 29 amendments in 229 years. There's a lot of forethought that went into that, and people we really have to thank for making this country what it is today. With that, we have no appointments, confirmations, or administrations, oaths of administration. Do we have any speakers this evening? No speakers?
Recognize that she's with the Daughters of America.
Thank you. You're with the Daughters of the American Revolution? Yes. And we just finished. I think you might have missed it by 1 minute.
Well, we have seen your village and loved it. We've been all over.
Yeah, that's fine. We do have a framed copy of the resolution for you. Village manager will bring it back to you. And did you want to say something about the... You're welcome to.
That'd be great.
My daughter has written me a speech as we're driving, but I thank you very much.
Come right on up to the microphone.
Do you want us to suspend the rules, Ed? Or no?
Do we need to?
No, I'm just asking.
Nah.
Good
Normally
evening.
we would suspend the rules, but you're a friend. Go ahead. It was your... It was on your behalf that
Thank
we
you,
did
and
the
I'm sorry
resolution.
that we are interrupting your agenda.
No,
Our-
not a
I am-
problem.
I am Barbara Pagano and Pat Holcomb of the Fox River Valley DAR chapter in Huntley. And the United States Constitution stands as a testament to the tenacity of Americans throughout history to maintain the liberties and freedoms to ensure those rights to every American. The tradition of celebrating Constitution Week has started with the Daughters of the American Revolution when they petitioned Congress to set September 17th through the 23rd annually to be dedicated to the Constitution in 1955. The resolution was adopted by Congress and signed into law on August 2nd, 1956, by the President, Dwight D. Eisenhower. The aims of this celebration are to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution, inform people that the Constitution is the basis for Americans' great heritage and the foundation of life for all Americans. Encourage the study of the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. Constitution Week is a great time to learn more about the important document and to celebrate the freedom that it has given us. On behalf of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Fox River Valley Chapter, we thank the Village of Carpentersville for recognizing the importance of the Constitution by issuing this proclamation. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless the USA.
President Ritter, can I ask a quick question? Can I ask her a quick question? Do you have a website?
Oh, yes, we do.
Do you? Okay. I have one of my closest friends is a director for the Rockford chapter for the DAR, Linda Brown, and but I know a lot of times they work on historic markers
Yes.
and do that kind of thing. So I just wondered if you had a website and if you were
I've never
doing
seen
that.
so many exciting women to enter a cemetery and clean gravestones.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
we get very excited.
Yeah. So yeah.
Preserve our history, Constitution, education, and we are now also going into many schools this year to read to children about the history, the Constitution, and the preservation.
That's wonderful. So there's a website you could people can go on to if.
Yes, we do. We have, the state of Illinois has a website, and the national has a website.
Okay.
And they are open to the public, and it's dar.org for the national website, and for the Illinois state, it's illinoisstate.org.
Okay, great.
And we do
Yeah.
a lot with Rockford.
Yeah, great, great. So
Thank you,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
thank you
and
very
ladies.
much.
Thank you.
And if you ladies need to do any shopping, you can look right out the window and see our brand-new Walmart that we're very proud of. So, but if you need to shop, now's the time. Okay, so consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of those items unless a trustee so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Any items to be removed?
I'll motion to pass the consent agenda.
Motion Paul, second Ginger. Mike, call the roll. Sorry.
I actually wanted to remove one thing. If
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'll amend my motion.
What do you want?
I'd like to remove item F.
Okay,
my
item F.
motion.
So, Paul, do you want to
I'll amend my motion and remove item F on the consent agenda.
continue your second, Ginger? All right.
Yes.
Motion Paul, second Ginger, minus item F. Mike, call the roll, please.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Humphries.
Yes.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.
Trustee Rayburn.
Yes.
Trustee Schultz.
Yes.
Trustee Burroway.
Okay. Then we would move to item F on the consent
I'll motion to
agenda.
approve item F.
Second.
Motion Paul, second Jeff? Okay. Jeff, you had a question or comment?
I just think it would benefit people in their community to hear a little bit about these because we've already had one successful use of this, correct?
Correct. Well, actually, several uses of the two different products that were evaluated over.
Well, let me stop. Normally I read these, so I'm going to read it so people know what we're talking about. Resolution approving purchase agreement with Physio Control Incorporated for 4 LifePak 15 V4 cardiac monitor defibrillators and 3 Lucas 2.2 chest compression systems. All right, now you may go ahead.
Okay. Over a period of several months, the fire department did a field evaluation of 2 of the top-of-the-line products in cardiac monitors / defibrillators and also automated CPR devices. And during that evaluation period, we both evaluated some subjective criteria and objective criteria, resulting in this recommendation before you tonight for the Physio Control product. During the field evaluation time, the monitors were used numerous times, and the CPR machine was actually used and was accredited as a component that saved a person's life. So these products that we're buying are state-of-the-art. The board's good forethought in funding this program is taking our level of EMS service and delivery to the next level. And then the subjective part of the evaluation was speaking with the crew members, the paramedics, to ensure that they're comfortable with the piece of equipment that we're purchasing. And resoundingly, the Physio Control product was highly rated in their own personal comfort level in being able to use the piece of equipment and deliver that emergency medical care to the patients.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? If not,
President Ritter, were these was this the equipment that we got a demonstration of at the Audit and Finance?
Yes.
Right.
The self-compression kind of, okay, just
It
wanted
was
to make
just
sure.
a different manufacturer. There was
Yeah.
2 that we were going to consider. It was the
Right.
alternate one that wasn't there last November, but
Oh, okay.
it was a competitor.
Okay, great. So, thank you.
Mike, call the roll.
Trustee Humfer.
Yes.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.
Trustee Rayburn.
Yes.
Trustee Schultz.
Yes.
Trustee Burroway.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
And again, just quickly pointing out a couple things, a resolution here that allows the Rosatis to be torn down and they can start construction of new stuff there. Old Town aprons, we had a committee that looked at that, aprons meaning the parking areas and areas in front of their driveways, finding that there were so many different kinds of driveways and structures that there was no real good way to say this one's okay, this one's not okay. The village has just decided we're going to do them all, do them right. And so we've hired a contractor to make sure that it's all done according to, the specifications. Considering that that's not something that our public works would do, they don't normally do that kind of stuff. So you got to get an expert sometimes. We can do a lot of things, but not everything. So that required an outside contractor to give us some needed expertise. Okay, with that, reports of managers, officers, commissions, and staff. Mark?
Yes, if we could, I'd have Chief Skilling go first as Director Cole cues himself up in all his presentation. He's got a longer presentation. So, Chief, your one other item.
Yeah, the other item that you just passed by resolution is the approval to enter into a contract with the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association for the development and the and the testing or the facilitation of a fire lieutenant's promotional process. Human Resource Director Samantha Burnell and myself researched several companies and interviewed 2 companies and determined through an evaluative process that the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association process is highly validated through hundreds of other similar-sized communities and smaller and larger communities. Their recommendation and their references were resoundingly positive, as were the other company. However, we have a much more comfort level with the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association, And the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association also lets us not only customize the assessment process, but also allows us to customize a small portion of the written exam, too, to incorporate our own local questions, specifically to Carpentersville. This, prior to the board report and the recommendation, Chief Kilborn and I met with the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners and presented this to them, and they were in agreement that this is a good company to use for this process.
And we're going to build on this with just one of the first things they do, and then it'll be also the...
Correct. This testing process will culminate in January. Then there'll be a battalion chief testing process in March. And then with the Fire and Police Commission, not an evaluated process with the IA chiefs, but probably in April, beginning of May, we'll be looking at a new higher firefighter listing. So we're keeping the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners very busy this spring.
Trustees, any questions?
No.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Now, with no further ado, as Director Bob Cole has a multitude of updates to the public and to the board.
Manager Rooney asked me to give you some updates on what Public Works has been doing. But first, I hope that everybody had the opportunity to see our brand new tandem axle dump truck out in the parking lot. If you haven't, we encourage you to take a look at it. That's about $150,000 sitting out in the parking lot. It does have a stainless steel dump box, stainless steel salt spreader, a liquid de-icing applicator on it, and we were trying something a little bit different this year. We bought we had installed on it a fiberglass snowplow, and we're just going to try that out. It's a little bit lighter in weight, and it's supposed to be a real good product. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have a CDL license, you're more than welcome to drive it. Not. But check it out, sit in and blow the horn. I think that you'll like what you see.
Is it as easy to drive as a golf cart?
It's probably easier to drive than golf cart. Yeah. The first update that I would like to give you tonight is the Public Works berm and privacy fence. Back in 2015, we did have concerns from an East Dundee resident, about noise and garbage blowing over onto his property. In 2016, we did budget or allocate money to install a privacy fence as well as a berm. And this was the thinking behind this was to help buffer noise and screen garbage from blowing off the site. Public Works has constructed bins for the street sweeping clippings. That's where a lot of the garbage comes from, to help contain that. And we are also using our spoils from our in-house excavations to create the berm. However, this is taking a long time to do. So to help expedite the project, spoils from the Carpenter Creek and Ball Avenue construction projects have been hauled to the site and graded by Public Works staff as well as Plody Construction. This is the project site along in here, although this line probably should be extended a little bit farther down here. So we're talking all in here, and then it does curve to the west. This is a top view of the berm. You can see that it's pretty extensive. Side elevation. Actually, this is probably about 7 to 7.5 feet tall, and it'll be probably an additional 4 to 6 inches once we cap it with topsoil. This is just a shot of the bins that we did make for street sweeping clippings. And we are currently doing research to determine if a vegetation buffer will be effective at controlling noise rather than a fence. We want to explore all possibilities. And Upland Design, who have been doing a lot of our landscape designs, will look into that for us. Next project, White Oaks SSA number 21, as well as the detention basin associated with that project. As far as the SSA is concerned, per the request of some of the residents, we did have 2 dead trees removed from the north end of the detention basin. In addition to that, we removed overgrown brush from the tree line and retaining wall on the north and south end of the site. The detention basin, Early on in our involvement, one of the biggest complaints from the residents was the water quality, and a lot of algae on the water was very unsightful. So Public Works went in, very similar to what we did at the Public Works facility. We pumped the basin down, and we've been keeping it pumped down probably for the last 6 weeks or so. This has allowed staff to determine the depth of the water. We had no idea how deep that water was. We heard reports anywhere from 2 to 5 feet. Well, we determined that the actual depth of that water is about 12 to 18 inches. And that is important because now we can determine the amount of fill needed to go in there to promote vegetation growth. These efforts have prompted the growth of vegetation. I don't know if the vegetation that's growing in the bottom of the basin now will grow once water is over. It just might be grass and weeds and things like that. But we are working with a wetland specialist to come up with a plan. And that plan will consist of probably this winter when everything is frozen, hauling in and spreading dirt in the winter months, plant plugs in the spring, and maintain a low water level for a year until the plants are established. We did this at the Public Works facility when we were having problems with our detention basin taking seed, and it was very successful. This is a shot of the detention basin. This is all the new vegetation that has grown since we started pumping it, so you can see that it is pretty extensive. In the middle here, this is the low area. And this is where the area that we plan on bringing in dirt and then planting the plugs in there. Carpenter Creek Restoration Project. We've had some residents' concerns or comments regarding the screening that was provided along around Brook Street. It's about a 3-block area. Along the fence line on Brook Street, we did plant trumpet vines to help screen the residents' view of the cross-container parking lot. And I just put a little picture up there of what those trumpet vines will look like once they're mature. It'll probably take a couple years, Kevin, do you think, for that 2 or 3 years for that to be up and running real and look real nice. But I think the flowers are kind of pretty. Old Town driveway aprons. Tonight the Village Board has approved a contract with A-Lamp for construction A-Lamp Construction for the installation of approximately 100 hot asphalt driveway aprons within the Old Town district of the village. The contractor will start the project toward the end of this week or early part of next week, and that's dependent on when Julie locates will be made. The project will begin in Old Town South, which is the Illinois and Edwards area, which this is a real good segue to my next talk. Project area, Old Town North, and then Old Town South. This is the area where they're going to start in here. This is an example of the apron that will be replaced. It's all gravel. And this is the good segue to our in-house paving program. We started out early this year. We paved the remaining 4 east and west streets from Green to Grove. That has been completed, and that required about 14 base repairs. The reason why I mentioned that is we're doing a lot of base repairs in Old Town, and this does take a little bit extra time for us to do. We have moved to the south of Old Town, all streets, a total of 6 within the Old Town South, which is the Illinois and Edwards area, will be completed, being paved by Thursday. And those required 40 base repairs. And many of those streets do require 2 lifts. We've been doing things a little bit different the last couple of years. We're actually grinding down about 4 inches and removing a lot of that old stuff in there and doing a base overlay and then a final lift on that. So our footages may be down a little bit, but still we're doing twice as much paving on these streets. Edwards Avenue complete. As you can see, it looks pretty darn nice. Now, our crews did this in-house. Notice the nice straight center lines. The edge lines are well manicured. And once again, I encourage you to get down there and take a peek at it. I think that you'll be happy with what you see. Carpenter Park Improvement Update. I did do a presentation a couple weeks ago just talking about the updates and the contract with Eleanor. We did, or LNR, we did have a pre-construction meeting last week, and their goal is to complete that project this fall. I think that's good news. We didn't think that they were going to be that aggressive, but their goal is to, like I mentioned, to complete the project with the exception of minor seeding and plantings. We briefly discussed working around the October Cross event, which is a big concern. Jeff Provisor was at our meeting, and he's doing different layouts to the course, and I believe that he has also contacted School District 220 to see the availability of Woodland School for a different venue for this year. Village crews, our remaining responsibility is to remove equipment such as tables, benches, grills, porta potties. We have to tear down the small pavilion and porta potty enclosure, remove 5 trees, install 3 drinking fountain services. And we're also not on the plans. We're going to install a hydrant by Veterans Garden. If you remember in the original plan, Veterans Garden on the east end of it is going to have a real nice Serenity Garden. And we want to make sure that all those plantings in there are kept well watered throughout the year. So instead of hauling hoses across the place, we're going to install a hydrant close to the area where we'll have minimal amount of hoses being strung across. On each end of the service road, there are bollards that we have to remove, and then by the end of the project, we will grind and overlay the service road. The end. Any questions?
Oh, I'm
Bob,
sorry.
I think you were going to touch on Keith Andrews, too.
Oh, gosh.
Well, let's take the questions one at a time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's
Yep.
easier than to go jumping back and forth. So if you have a question on this, do that now.
When you say the project, Bob, by fall, are you talking about the entire master plan?
Yep.
They really think it can be that aggressive, huh?
That's what they
Yeah.
tell me.
So then,
Always depends on the weather, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it does. No, I understand that. And so and we brought this up too at the Parks meeting. So is it the village that will be, Public Works, that'll do the walk around the park?
No, that's all contract.
So they'll be doing that also?
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Good news. I mean, it's
Very
really
good news. Yeah. We were
Yeah.
very happy
Yeah.
when they told us of their
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with maintaining the 2015 wage rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to let the events committee know.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
Yep,
on
definitely.
Wednesday. Thanks, Bob.
And then, Bob, the band shell. Remember, we were going to talk about the band shells. Not part of the master plan, but
Correct.
there is a consideration from audit and finance.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
we'll be bringing to the audit and finance the thought for discussion of replacing the existing stage area. I'm concerned with it because it is quite high up off the ground, and it's a liability to the village. If a little kid got up there and fell off, I think that they would have a pretty good case against us. So our plans are to possibly take that stage down and build a berm and have a flat top on it, concrete pad, and put a new structure on that for a new band shell or something similar to that on top of that. And that will not be part of the OSLOD grant, but it will be a separate contract that'll be awarded for that. So
And we just wanted to make sure we told the public about this. Audit and finance is not taped. It doesn't get the coverage that this meeting will, and getting the word out. So I learned my lesson. I didn't think that the standpipe on Route 25 had emotional appeal to folks in town, and it did.
Or the silo. Or the silo.
Yeah, so, and the silo over at Raceway Woods that we maintain now. So we want to just say it's under consideration. It'll be back before the board at an upcoming meeting in October with options to demolish and then replace as part of the entirety of the master plan of Carpenter Park. So all the work gets done at one time, and it doesn't seem piecemeal, and it fits in with the master plan. So I have signed a small contract that's under $10,000 with Bob to work with Upland Design and Michelle, who's worked with us on the Carpenter Park master plan for different options and costs. So we'll bring those forward so the board and the public will be able to see that before you make a decision.
Mark, because there might be an emotional aspect too with that bridge, and Bob has already said too, we know it's plaqued and the plaque will be preserved by the stage. We're not tossing it. But I had wondered if we should see some real costs for those people that are going to say, you have to keep the structure as it is. What is the rehab cost versus a new cost?
Right.
So that we have good
Well,
talking points.
yes, we will.
You know, so to do that. It seems like it needs an awful lot of work. Once you're up on that stage, you realize. But, you know, if we're going to run into some emotional arguments about it, then, or debates, I should say, we probably should have the numbers for both, I think. My humble opinion, I think. So,
Two things that probably, when she says the plaque will move, in other words, the new stage would become the Lieutenant Walters stage. It would not change names. It
No,
wouldn't just be a
yeah.
moving of the plaque.
Right,
It will
right.
remain dedicated to
Right.
the same purpose. And there will be a time when we get a report, a financial report, when we will ask members of the public if they want to give us any input on this before we make a final decision. But we should have the financials first, and then we'll present that, and then we'll say, if you have comments, please let us know what your comments are so that we can take in the interests of the village and the residents about this idea. Because we have an idea, but we represent the village, but we are not the village. So we will seek input at some point along the way.
Could I get a question in here?
Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just wondering about the plantings along Carpenter Creek, along the cross containers fence there. If we put in those trumpet
Vines, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And did you go out and take a look at those, Kevin? Are they growing well, or did they need replanted or anything like
I
that?
actually have a call into the contractor to go and inspect them.
Oh, okay.
And if there are any that are net to replace them and get it replanted this fall.
And then I understand too, there was tall grass that was planted in there too, right?
Yeah, native
Yeah.
planting.
Yeah, okay.
just so I can mention, if you don't mind, for them, I planted trumpet vines at my house. They are extremely aggressive. They're tubular. So when it got, I thought I put them along this fence.
Right.
The weight of it was so heavy, it was bending my wood fence. So I had it cut back. I battled those things coming up every spring afterwards, and they literally would come up under a sidewalk alongside the house and in my window wells. So it's a good planning for a mass planning and for a barrier and you can't see through, but they are very aggressive and, they're going to grow fine. Trust me. They'll be fine. It'll be a good screen for it. So,
Along Brook Street there that are viewing out to the
right.
property line.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
If there are no more questions, we'll let Bob move
Yeah,
on.
in addition, Keith Andres Park received direction from Manager Rooney to enter into a contract with Upland Design to do something with the Sacramento entrance. And Upland Design, they are recommending, or they have given us a concept plan of installing a arched-shaped entrance sign, Keith Andres Park, very similar to the one that will be installed in Carpenter Park. And that'll be installed right on the entrance path going in. In addition to that, there will be a kiosk and also some type of a rock. We haven't really determined, either a rock or a column that'll pay tribute to Keith Andres. And we will relocate the existing plaque off of Tulsa to that site, and also have the new plaque will have the location where he was killed in action. It'll be identified with a star. It'll be a nice tribute to Mr. Keith Andres.
Any other questions? Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Now we will hear from Jeff Monteleone on the special census.
Good evening, President Ritter, Board of Trustees. As the board is well aware, staff was tasked with conducting a special census of the village as a result of the completion of Winchester Glen subdivision. This past week, we got the official numbers that reflected a total change of our population of 600 residents, bringing the total official count to 38,291. Now, based on what the 2016 state shared revenue rate currently is, and projecting a 2% change annually, which is roughly where it's been historically, that would give us an added $337,181 between now and the next time that the census conducts their decade count. Now that is our net gain. I've already adjusted that for the $63,000 that it cost us to have it conducted. With that said, with us assessing that the governor's hit is going to be potentially in the 0 to 25% range, we are still in a position to gain at least $250,000 between now and 50 months.
And we want to make one clarification. There is 600 additional residents that were counted in that special census.
Nice.
There are far more like 2,400 people that live in the Winchester Glen, but some of them had been counted in the 2010 census. So this was those additional homes that were built and not counted at 2010, 2011 that we did the additional. So there are far more people than 600 in that subdivision.
Yeah, the count was around 1,800 citizens in the 2010 count, is around 2,400 now. And that total number is about 18 to 20% higher than we originally estimated when we did our cost benefit about 18 months ago. And we tried to make it a little conservative just to make sure that without any question we are going to come out on top.
Good.
Questions? Kevin?
Were there metrics measured beyond just population? Was income measured in some of the more long-form things that the census measures in the special?
I do have some of the categories that they used.
It is not as extensive as the base census, though.
It's not. Really, it gives me what their total population is, their housing units, and their total population under 18. They may have asked some other questions, but as far as what actually got reported back to us, that's all.
So no income questions or anything like that?
They didn't give me any data as it relates to that.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
And we'll have a commission report on audit and finance in more detail, but I did have a request that is relevant to the audit and finance schedule, budget schedule. We have a meeting scheduled originally on our calendar for November the 8th because it meets the statutory requirement of no more than earlier than 7 days and the 14 days when we have to give a public hearing regarding the budget when we finish through our audit finance recommendation to the board. And that date fell on, just Tuesdays when we normally try to do business. And in July, I was not thinking that November 8th, being the national election, would be a potential conflict for residents as well as some of the board members to attend. So I'd ask your consensus if we could move that to November the 9th, the Wednesday night, for that special public hearing regarding the budget instead of the Tuesday night.
So we'll have a board meeting on the 1st of November?
Yes.
That's the normal date for it.
That's the first meeting of the month, and we'll present the results audit and finance recommendations on the budget, but then to have the actual public hearing has to be noticed, and for 7 days, which that would be 8, and no more than 14, so the 9th works.
Okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I am too.
Is there any chance of doing it on the 7th? I can look at my calendar when we get this.
Oh, we could do it on Monday the 7th, I think. Does that technically still work?
It could be pretty technical. The audit and finance would recommend on 29th October, which is Saturday. Then we come to Monday if we have some changes, and to final they have the budget to the village board, and that is published. And then I have to give 7 days before the board convenes to have that hearing.
Yeah.
It might be kind of very close if we keep it on Monday 7th.
Or the 10th would still work, too.
Would be what, yeah.
I'm gone for a week.
Oh, you're
I'm
gone.
leaving on that Wednesday for a week.
Oh.
A week's vacation. I didn't look at my calendar when we talked about this. My fault. I was in the yard working and didn't have.
Well, you'll be part of the audit and finance. The public hearing, we're not going to debate it. We're just going to present it to the public.
If that's fine with me. We can have the public hearing without me being there. I don't care. I trust the board to not do anything crazy.
Do you?
Well, most of the board, yeah. Okay, so if
We'll be making an adjustment either on Monday the 7th or the 9th, but just to know that the board is okay with us making that adjustment. If we think, as we get through the audit and finance, that we could have our staff work completed, because we have to, whatever date we set, we have to have that document ready so many hours ahead of time to meet the FOIA, public meetings laws, and that's what Hitesh is speaking to. The 29th sounds like a lot of time, except it is a pretty intensive document, and if there's some major changes made by the audit and finance recommendation, we just want to make sure we've set a date and we actually present documents that are available electronically and physically. So it'll either be the Monday the 7th or the 9th. So it will not conflict with the national election. If that's okay with the board's consensus, we don't need a formal vote. All right? And that would conclude the manager's staff report this evening, President Ritter.
That's only like once every 15 or 16 years when we don't have a board meeting on an election, because it's got to be the first Tuesday after the first Monday, and then on an even year. So it's probably once every. This is the first time I think it's been not on election day that we had our November board meeting. But with that, we would go to commissions and staff. Don, any reports this evening?
Commission reports. The Jelkies Creek Fox River Watershed Coalition did not meet on Monday. It was canceled and has been pushed back to October 3rd. So I will have a report after that.
Okay, thank you. Nothing from Quad Commerce.
Nothing from Quad.
Paul?
Business Development's having a meeting next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So that's all I have to announce.
5 o'clock. Kevin?
There was an audit and finance meeting on September 8th. Apologies, I couldn't attend. I had a conflict at the last minute, but I've been briefed on what was discussed, and there were about 8 items on the agenda to go over. I'll go over them quickly here. Actually, some of them have been discussed already. The budget calendar review, Manager Rooney just covered that. The Carpenter Park grant update was a discussion, and that's been covered by Director Cole and Manager Rooney already. Ban shell discussion. 2016 financials were discussed, and the good news there is that the general fund has a surplus moving forward. However, it's not. Good news is a relative term for general fund surpluses. We don't want that surplus to be too high, because that means that the taxes are out of whack with the services. So it's within the acceptable range. Revenue projections for fiscal year 2016 are trending at or above target. We're expected to close the year at 102% of budget, so that's more good news. That's right where we want to, almost exactly where we want to land. Debt service and pension tax levy discussion. The great news there, debt service levy is down by $209,000. Again, that's great news. However, the pensions look like they're going to be going up by $375,000 next year, and that's the increase. Correct? That's not the total. To break that down, that's $270,000 for the police pension and $105,000 for the fire pension. So that looks to be going up, and that's certainly not something that is unique to Carpentersville. That's something all of the municipalities all across Illinois, it's a challenge that everyone is facing right now. There were 2 recommendations. One was for the insurance brokerage service that we're going into agreement with. We Audit and Finance recommended Gallagher, and for the water rate study update, the Audit and Finance Commission recommended Baxter and Woodman for the water rate study. And then the meeting closed with discussion, no recommendation, but discussion on the home rule sales tax sunset. That's something we'll be discussing quite a bit here in the future, and we'll be looking for a lot of input into that. So it's something that from the ground up requires quite a bit of discussion, and one of those ground up places is the Audit and Finance Commission. So there was some healthy debate and discussion on what our options are there, and what option A will do versus what option B versus option C, and some good conceptualizing of what we can do there. And that concluded the agenda for the Audit and Finance Commission.
We just had a very short Parks Committee meeting a week ago Monday. It was the last meeting for the official Carpentersville Parks Committee. We thanked everybody for their service and their input. Bob gave them an update because they had been a valuable part of all of it since we put the master plan together. We, of course, invited everybody to migrate over to the events committee. I think most are, and I told them I did send out an email today to Manager Rooney thinking that we probably will go ahead with Carpentersville Parks and Special Events Commission and call it that. Once I got his input, we could find out, and then I asked if Hart needs to remove that committee, like just recently you went through and did a few committees. So we will still have a Parks Committee, and certainly things will be brought forward to them. They'll still be advisory for the board, and then we'll just integrate it with events in the park too. So it should be very nice. So again, thank you to everyone that served on the committee for many, many years. So it's how Keith Andrews got its plaque over on Tulsa, and its monument when it was first built, and several other things in town. So, but we'll move forward. We'll have a lot to do. So, and that concludes my. I should mention we have a events committee meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 at Public Works. So.
We've pretty much agreed that the new committee will take all members from the other two, and then eventually by attrition get down to whatever the recommended size is, or the ordinance size, but everybody will be grandfathered in, and over a couple of years people will drop out and so forth and so on. We'll do it without asking anybody not to serve if they want to serve. So that would take care of all of our committee stuff here. We have no old business. Under new business, we have resolution approving an amendment to the redevelopment agreement with Spring Hill Center for Commerce and Industry Property Owners Association. I need a motion.
A motion to pass.
I'll second.
Motion Paul, second Kevin. Mark, you want to?
I want to introduce Patrick Burke, our Economic Development Director, who worked diligently on his non-relatives starting point. If you all remember, the other Burke, Marty, who was here for a year before we hired Patrick as an interim basis, began this work, and then Patrick has worked with the representatives from the industrial park to finish it. And if you'd give the highlights and the recommendation of staff to the board tonight.
Good evening. The Spring Hill Center for Commerce and Industry Property Owners Association has requested a reimbursement for a new monument sign with an electronic message center at the business park at Route 31 and Commerce Parkway. Several steps had to occur before we could bring this to the board's attention. The TIF 1 redevelopment plan had to be amended to allow for marketing expenses, and also the responsibilities of the original redevelopment agreement that had to be assigned from the original developer to the Property Owners Association. And as Manager Rooney said, this really started last summer, and we completed those two steps earlier this year. And then the Property Owners Association submitted two bids for the monument sign. Staff reviewed both bids and met with the companies to get a better understanding of it, and determined that both companies had the experience and were quality companies that could do the project. And so the current monument sign there was actually intended to be temporary. This new monument sign will have that electronic message center in there, which will market the existing businesses and the available sites within TIF 1. But also the village is going to be able to use the electronic message center to put up its own messages. So the village will have exposure now on Route 31, and then the new monument sign on Route 25. So the recommendation is that the village would reimburse up to $69,000 for the sign, and that would be for the demolition and installation of a new monument sign.
Questions from anyone?
I'll just make a couple comments. That this took a while. It went through planning and zoning, and they took a really hard look at this and came back and approved it. So it made our job somewhat easy to have them go through the heavy lifting and ask the tough questions. And I think several of us were keeping abreast of what was going on in planning and zoning, and I think they did a great job. So I think we should move forward.
And it is a little bit unusual for a TIF district to sponsor a sign like this, but we did look at it a lot and think about the positives of being able to use a sign for the village, the jobs that we might be able to get skilled workers for, because they can use it for that, and just for the overall look of that property. That was an important consideration on my part, because what was there now is pretty sad. They knew it, we knew it, and so it ends up, even though it's a little bit unusual, I think it has a lot of good things in it for us and for them. So that's why I'm willing to support it, and I'm willing to take the recommendation of our staff and go with it. That's why I said a few weeks ago. Whatever the staff recommends, that's the way we go. Any other comments? If not, Mike, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sabi.
Yes.
Trustee Rayburn.
Yes.
Trustee Schultz.
Yes.
Trustee Burroway.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Humphrey.
Yes.
Okay, well, we do have a representative from the Business Owners Association. Would you like to come up, Carl?
Yes.
Obviously you do, because you're here already.
I'm Carl Swanson.
Thank you.
By the way, some may not know that I was the original developer of the site. Went into contract with Leonard Biesinger Properties back in, I think, 1994, and closed on it in 1996, and proceeded on the general construction of the park. So it's been a long process. But I represent the Owners Association. My company, Commercial Property Associates, is the park agent, and I'm also on the board. So I wanted to stand up here, and after really 2 years or more, and phone calls and emails to Ed Ritter and Paul Humphrey, and a couple meetings, we were able to get to this point, and I just want to thank everybody. It's going to be a great asset for the park. So thank you so much for all your work, and all the staff too, all their help. So
Pleasure to work with you, Carl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Have a good
thank
night.
you, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, trustee reports. Well, let's start with Jeff this evening.
I don't have too much tonight, other than I wanted to thank Pat and Ginger from the what's the name of the, it's not parks, but the events commission. I picked up my daughter and my neighbor boy from school, and we were having talks about all the fun stuff we've done this year in Carpentersville, and Slide the City, and the Civil War reenactment, and they're excited about the Halloween contest every year. Last year when we drive home, they wanted me to drive down the streets and show them where the people were for the holiday lighting contest. And just on a side note, the Civil War reenactment, I've heard so many great comments about it, but I'm having a discussion with my daughter and the neighbor boy, and they're 6 years old, about the Civil War, and I'm like, you probably don't really know what that is. And I told them, I'm like, this is a war that was to end slavery, and they were like, I was trying to explain slavery to them, and they just couldn't understand it. They're like, why would I don't get it. How would you ever do that? So I think it's important that we do things like this that not only are great for the village, but are historical, and start discussions with the children. And it was it was A, so nice that they couldn't understand it, that's where we are today, but B, that we are having so many things like this in Carpentersville, and it's not only just showing off the village, but really getting the children involved and a lot of nice things like that. So thank you both.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to ask the public. We have some new traffic patterns in the village, and it's important to get everyone's feedback as we flip the switches on these. You know, we've had police has done an excellent job of monitoring the situation, and we've received some feedback just anecdotally. But we need more. We want to hear good, bad, and ugly. We want to know what's working with these new designs, what isn't working, so that we can maybe tweak it down the road or do whatever we need to do to make it even better. So I'm just asking the public to feel free to reach out to us and let us know if any of these have made a significant improvement for you, or if they have made things worse. Let us know. Thanks.
Pat?
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Don? Yeah, just one thing. I got to visit our new baby out there, our new snowplow truck, quite a rig. Very, very nice. Jack was nice enough to give me a little tour of the outside and showed me all the special equipment on it, and fascinating to me. I used to drive the truck like that at the airport, and I just appreciated that. And I think there were some good decisions made when we went to purchase the truck and how it's set up. It is kind of set up for the village in our unique situations, you know, especially with the hills that we have around here. You know, we have to plow and get de-icer down and all of that fun stuff. So unfortunately, I had to talk about that. I'm not really looking forward to that coming, but at least we're prepared. What else? That's about it. But I will piggyback on what Jeff had to say about, it was quite a summer, a lot of activities, got a lot of positive feedback from it. I haven't heard anything about the circus, though. Did anybody get any feedback about the circus or attend that? I didn't get anything on that.
No, I was going to email Mr. Williams. I just haven't to find out how overall he thought it went. We had a handful of protesters. It wasn't anything bad. They always expect it.
Yeah.
Give them their spot.
Right.
I think I heard they had some decent attendance. So you know, I'll email him this week, Don, and let the board know what his feedback was.
Excellent.
Chief Kilborn has an update on the circus.
Oh, okay. Did you talk to Mr. Williams? I don't want to bother him again.
I coordinated with the circus and the protesters beforehand. Spoke to both parties. They reached out, and we coordinated an effort. The protesters were given a visible place on the corner where they could protest and have their voices heard, but were not in conflict with the circus and the business that was going on. In speaking to both parties afterward, they were happy with the circumstances that were laid out. There was no conflict. The circus itself, at least in the contact I had post, said they had a couple good nights and had no problems and liked the venue itself.
Yeah, it went up quickly and went down quickly, and you didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
You know, which is good. I mean, they know what they're doing, so no damage to the park or anything.
Yeah, I drove past there and saw quite a few cars parked there, and attendance looked decent that day night I drove by. So I was just curious. Thank you. That's all.
Ginger?
I have no report tonight.
You know, Don brought up about the new truck that we purchased, and one of the things that's on there that probably is going to be used this winter, if the Farmer's Almanac is right, is that hydrochloride. Is that, and that'll be used on the hill on Main Street. When it gets super cold, regular salt does not work. So it'll be nice to have that as something that we can use to try to make that tough spot in the village. And we haven't had that many problems with it, but you just never know with how cold it'll get, and it'll be nice to have that. And I want to piggyback off what Kevin Rayberg brought up about giving us feedback on the new traffic patterns at Maine and Washington and Lincoln and Washington. Our police department's been doing a fantastic job monitoring that situation and keeping us up to date and posted as to what they're seeing and not seeing, because we are getting, some people that don't want us to do this are making it sound a lot worse. And then it's nice to have the police come in with a report that's objective and, give us a real idea of what's really happening there. So, again, we're trying something, and we're not going to know if we're successful unless we hear back from our residents. And so I've heard both good and bad at this point. And, if you would, just please include us in any of your thoughts of problems, or if you like it, that's always good to hear too. Or even come to a meeting and tell us. That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, I have a ringside seat to Main Street, so just this evening I was out watering some new grass that I put in, and the horn started honking, and I looked up, and there was a car stopped to turn left, make the illegal left turn, and then you could see the traffic backed all the way up over the bridge, and somebody on a bicycle must have been there, and it blocked the bridge completely, and here comes the siren. Well, fortunately, it cleared just in time for the fire truck to get across the bridge, but that's one of the things you have to face. And that was like at 10 minutes to 5. At 5 minutes after 5, when I went in, traffic was just flowing almost normally. And then a half hour later, I looked out my window and it was backed up both ways again. So you can't, it's almost impossible to say, here's a snapshot, oh, it was perfect. Because 5 minutes later, it can be totally jammed up, and you can have the police and fire be blocked on the wrong side of the river. So I'm sure that no left turn on Lincoln is a big inconvenience, but it is also a major safety factor. And I'm sure that down on the other end, the same kind of thing is going to, hopefully we'll get some reports on no more people going straight, and that'll make a difference down there. But
I think we have to give it time, Ed. You're talking about a traffic pattern that has been in existence forever, right, Mike? I mean,
When it has been different.
no, it never has. So 2 weeks, 4 weeks, this isn't the right amount of time. Once the police are on top of it, I'm sorry to say, folks that continue to ignore it on purpose are going to get a ticket. But once it all starts to flow, I'm really thinking we're looking at probably about 6 months or so before we can take a real critical view. I had an emergency, a pet emergency, and I'm trying to get across the bridge to get up to Spring Hill Vet, and somebody was making an illegal turn. And at that moment, there wasn't an officer around, but it backed up everybody. You just sort of sigh, but I think, okay, this is new for everybody, So even I have to think a little bit, and I've been living here forever and a day. Oh, that's right, I can't turn now, so
and the guy that they were honking at, he made his illegal turn, and the police were down there with the lights on, so he cut back around through Otto's parking lot and went back around again, and then went up the hill. I just happened to watch his actions. I've seen that several times where people turn down the street, see the lights, and then they come through the parking lot. Or they park and just wait there. I don't know how long you're going to wait. A long way. But
one of the challenges with this is people are so married to their GPSs now and their phones and Google Maps telling them where to turn and when to turn, and Google Maps doesn't account for local laws like this, a no left turn law for 2 hours. Google Maps doesn't. Google Maps tells you to turn left. It doesn't say, and people will follow Google Maps right into the Fox River. If it malfunctions. So
I've got 2 drivers at home that would do that. And my daughter tried to do that. Google Maps told her to go down, Miller Road to 31 and make a left-hand turn at 5 o'clock. You've got to be a good driver to be able to get through that.
Yeah.
And, she hence gets into an accident following Google Maps. Even though I've told her, learn how to read a map. Your Google's not going to work if you're in the middle of the desert. And plot out. You always take 60. You never go to 62 when you're going from west. When you're going east during rush hour. Living here, that. Stay away from 62. It's horrible. Both ways. Take 68. It's an enjoyable ride.
I'm looking forward to hearing something about how it's going at Liberty Elementary.
It's going well at Liberty Elementary, very well, because I live right there, and it's nice. It's
no
long
parents that are
overdue.
upset? I mean, are they okay, Paul?
You know what? Even
Yeah.
if they're going through a subdivision, and I want to make a comment about that too. Don't use Otto's parking lot, please,
Yeah,
to
I
cut
was
through.
gonna
Where we
mention
will
that.
hear that, from the owner. And we already have from one of the minions. But please stay on the street. Don't use any businesses lots. But for Liberty Elementary, going through the subdivisions is really. I don't think it's caused a problem. Have you guys seen anything yet?
Really? That's good to hear.
And
Yeah.
we do have an agreement with Otto. We can ticket people who cut through the lot, right?
And we have ticketed people cutting through the lot.
Right.
The law is avoiding a traffic control device.
So yeah, we can still do stuff.
And there's two other things too there. I mean, we're expanding Main Street, which could help with this left-hand turn on the Lincoln eventually. And then, Long Meadow, once that goes in, that could reduce the amount of traffic over the local bridge too. So, you're right, Pat. It's even after 6 months, I don't even know if we're going to have a good idea of what's working and what's not working. I mean, it may take a couple of years before we get to that point. And, just concerning the new construction that's going to occur in the near future.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll finish my report. Some of you who are visitors to Village Hall may have noticed the little red library that's right outside the door here if you come to pay your water bill or come to see the community development or whatever. It's a joint project between the village and the Carpentersville Rotary. It's stocked with books, adult books, kids books, Spanish books, English books, and it's a, take a book, give a book, take a book, give a book, trade off. Kind of a nice deal. The village put it in and installed it for them, and then the Rotary is keeping it stocked. We had ribbon cutting last Monday, I believe it was, and so that was a nice project. And I'm not going to do this every meeting, but I'm still so disappointed in the state Supreme Court. I noticed that the governor had a letter, I'm sure he sent it to all the newspapers in the state, talking about how our election system is, and that two-thirds of the state House and Senate seats are uncontested because the boundaries are divided such that you almost can't win. If somebody's an incumbent and they're in the right party, it's drawn so that they will always win that seat. And so it's taken and made elections pretty much meaningless in the state because two-thirds of this House and Senate are already decided by party. It's just a shame that we haven't had a chance to come up with a better system that makes it a true election where every vote really counts, as opposed to two-thirds of the votes don't even count because they're predetermined who gets that. And that was the gist of the governor's letter. I think it was in the Daily Herald late last week. I don't remember the exact date. But, and this is not an advocation towards the governor, towards the idea of real elections in Illinois, as opposed to these, whatever we call them now. They're elections, they're legal, but they're not real elections because nothing ever changes and nobody has to really run. Once you win your primary, you are elected, in a sense. Well, anyway, as I said, I will not bring that up every meeting. But we need to go to closed session for items 2C1, 2C2, 2C5, 2C6, and 2C11 of the Open Meeting Act, so it looks like we'll be in there a long time. I'll need a motion.
I'll motion.
To close session.
A second.
Motion Ginger, second Jeff. Mike, call the roll, please.
Trustee Rayberg?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
Yes.
Trustee Burroway?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Humper?
Yes.
Trustee Savi?
Yes.
We will reconvene after the closed session to discuss other village business items.